This is part one of track days for beginners. In part one, I'm going to talk all about what you need to do to prepare your car to make sure it's good on track and how you can prepare yourself. Any parts or products I use in this video, I will link to in the description. It's a good idea to have fresh oil when you're doing track days. I don't like to let my car go more than 4 track days without an oil change, and I follow the manufacturer's recommendations when it comes to which oil I choose. I don't use racing oils because they can damage your catalytic converter. Quite often when you look in the owner's manual, there will be a couple of different oils or more that you can choose from. And we're talking about viscosity here when it comes to different ones you can choose from. This car, owner's manual recommends 0 to 20 or 5 to 30 like I've got here. 5 to 30 is a higher number, so it's a thicker oil. I tend to choose the thicker oil that they recommend because I hope that it will protect the engine better when the engine gets really hot on those track days. However, I only replace the oil filter as per the manufacturer's recommendation. So if I say do 4 track days in 2 months, I will just change the oil and leave the filter until, in this car, it's every year or 12,000 miles. Probably one of the most important things to consider before taking your car on track are its brakes. Now you've got brake discs, which are these things here, and you've got the pads. The pads clamp the discs to slow you down. They convert kinetic energy into heat energy. And the trouble is, when you're on track, you can easily get your brakes above 200, 300 degrees Celsius. And most road organic pads go off at about 200 degrees Celsius. So you may want to look into some racing style pads. These are Ferodo DS 2500s. I've not tried these before, but I have 2 friends who say they're all right, and I know other people. The trouble with these brakes is they're not so good on the road. They don't work so well when they're cold, and they can be quite noisy. One way you can try and reduce the noise they make is by putting a little bit of grease on the back. A lot of people use copper grease. This is not recommended because copper eats away at the rubber seals in the brake caliper, but this is the proper grease for the job. You should be able to find this in most motor factors. I think it's important that I mention you shouldn't put the grease on the friction lining of the brake pad. Make sure it goes on the back of the brake pad. The next thing to consider is your brake fluid. New brake fluid boils at around about 230 degrees Celsius, but old brake fluid boils at only 150 degrees Celsius. That's quite a big jump. So you really want new brake fluid when you go to the track, ideally less than a year old, because brake fluid is hygroscopic, if I can say that word right. It draws in water and it's considered wet when it gets to 3% saturation of water. I like to go a step further and put racing brake fluid in. This is Motul RBF 600. It has a dry boiling point, which is when it's fresh and new, of 312 degrees Celsius, that's usefully higher, and a wet boiling point, which is when it's 3% water, of 205 degrees Celsius. So it's dry and wet are better, but I would replace it every year. I wouldn't bother taking your car on track unless you have track style brake pads and at least fresh fluid. I have done so many times in my more naive years, and it's not gone well. Within 2 or 3 laps, I've had a spongy pedal, which is scary, but also as the organic road style brake pads get hot, the pad material can transfer to the disc, leaving your brake pedal very, very juddery and the whole car vibrating like crazy as you're trying to slow down. And it just wastes a day because you pay for the track day and you can't use it because you can't use your car in that state. It's a good idea to protect your wheels before you go on track. Track-orientated brake pads give off dust, which really does cling to your wheels. Your wheels get really hot on track as well, which means they're perfect conditions really to really mess your wheels up and get loads of brake dust stuck to them that you can't then get off very easily. So this protective coating should go a long way to protecting your wheels and making it easier to clean them. Not only is it a good idea to clean and protect your wheels, but also clean and put a good layer of wax on your car too for protection, because on track days I find I often get these sticky lumps of rubber stuck to it in various places as tyres get very hot and you get some rubber on the track, and that can sometimes flick up onto your car and it's quite hard to clean off. So a bit of preparation can save you time in the long run. Make sure you've got your tow eye ready and that it fits and works. I've actually got to a track day once and not been able to fit mine because it was bent, believe it or not, and they won't let you on without this. So making sure it's all good before you go is well worth the time. You may find some engines burn a little bit of oil on track. It's not a problem, don't worry about it. But you do want to take some extra oil with you to make sure you're okay. I buy the bigger cans of oil because they're cheaper, and you can decant it into a dry and clean half-litre water bottle. These generally have a very good seal so they don't leak. But what I really like about these is that when it comes to pouring it into your engine, it's very easy to do so without spilling it and making a mess. When it comes to footwear, make sure you take something that's very comfortable. I like thin-soled shoes that are very flat at the bottom because I get better feel on the pedals. But also wear cool clothes. You want to take a coat with you in case it's cold, but make sure you can take that coat off and you're not going to be too hot, because when you're driving on a circuit, you do get very hot. Talking of clothes, they won't often let you drive if you have short sleeves. So you want long sleeves, but thin and cool. And it's a good idea to get your own helmet if you don't already have one. They do offer helmet hire most of the time, but they're not always that nice, and it's questionable. The hygiene is questionable, should I say. What you want to do as well, and this is why it's a good idea to get your own helmet, is because you want to put it on and get in the car and see if you fit well. You don't want to go and pay for a track day, get all the way there and find you like this in your car because there's not enough headroom. Oh, and if your car is a convertible, you will be required to have a full-faced helmet. If you've got a hard top, they may let you off with an open-faced helmet, but to be honest, this is much safer. And the final important thing you need to consider is how much tread you have on your tyres. You need enough to do the track day, and you need enough to get home. How much you're going to use varies drastically from day to day and the car you're driving. The least amount of tread I've used is in a Vauxhall VX220 on a winter's day. So a light car, low track surface, and I used 1/2 a mil of tread on that day, and that includes the journey there and back and the whole track day. The most I've used is half my entire tread in just 20 minutes in a BMW Z4M on a very warm day in May where I was doing big skids around the circuit. You don't have to buy expensive tyres. Yes, you will get round the track quicker with expensive tyres, but even if you only have budgets, they will still work. You'll just be a bit slower. So I've covered the important parts: oil, brakes, brake fluid, tyres, and obviously a helmet and the correct clothing. Oh, and your tow eye. They're the most important parts you need to get right before you go on track. If you want to go faster, the next thing to consider would be getting expensive track orientated tyres. That would make the biggest difference to your track times. Not that you should be timing your track days. After tyres, that's when you want to look at suspension, and after suspension, that's when you want to look at power. Many people make the mistake of going for power first, but power, although it will get you around the circuit quicker, it's not the most fun part of a track day, because when you've got more power, it just means that you're going faster up the straight, and doesn't matter if you're in a 350 horsepower car or 150 horsepower car. On the straight, you are just foot pinned to the floor, waiting. It's the braking and the cornering is where all the fun is. On the subject of power, if you want more power and you feel like you're getting to the end of your car's ability, your ability is now outshining your car's ability, I recommend changing your car more than modifying your engine, because when you modify your engine, quite often reliability goes downhill a little bit and you don't get your money back that you put into it. I recommend buying a better car, a more powerful car that may be better for the track, and although it may be a bit more money to buy a better car than to modify your car, you get that money back when you sell it. And the final thing I want to talk about is insurance. Are you insured on a track day? No, you're not. However, there is a way around it. If you have a car that's more than 9 years old, you can get classic car insurance. Yes, just 9 years old qualifies you to be able to get some kind of classic car insurance. And some classic policies include 5 or 6 track days. You will have to notify them where and when the track day is. And often there is quite a hefty excess, say about £1,500. But if you've got an older car, that is a way you can protect it. Well, that's the end of part one. If you think it helps, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to get my future videos. In part two, I'll be at the race circuit. I'm going to give you some driving tips and I'm going to let you know how the day is run. There's links in the description to all the products I've used in this video if you're interested. And until the next one, cheerio.